Hiya, welcome to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid, Bot Brack for short. So this is my American Crime Films Part 2, so this is my top 3. I will tell you that I've cheated on this, but you'll realise why, because we kind of had to do that. So number 3 is a film that needs no introduction. It's a toss-up really with this, whether it's the best film of the last 30 years or another one. But because it's Scorsese's Goodfellas, you can't have American crime films without this in. I've got to confess, criminally, I did not see this at the pictures when it came out in 1990. Got great reviews, and for some reason I just didn't catch it at the pictures. And my mate rented it on video. He was a bass player in a band I was in. And we went round his, and this would have been sometime in 91. I was blown away. It was brilliant. And then I've watched it regularly since then. Last time I watched it, I probably wasn't quite as into it. I think simply for the reason I just know it so well. But I think this film's, what's interesting about it, it's an epic. It's like about 2 hours, 20 minutes long. But it's just a really easy watch. Scorsese, his and the script, the way it's been finely honed, and the film editing, it just kind of flows along. And these guys are really bad, you know, they're really nasty guys. They're not redeemable, but it does that thing, it's that Hitchcockian thing where it takes you into their world and makes you kind of be on their side. It's got numerous brilliant moments, not least the famous 3-minute Steadicam shot where it follows Ray Liotta and Lorraine Bracco's characters through the service entrance of the club and straight in. I mean, now you see long takes routinely. We just had 1917, you know, all shot in one take and digitally edited, but the cameras are much more lightweight now. It's easier to do these moves, and it's easier to disguise cuts with stuff with wipes and things like that, whip pans. Back then, like when, you know, Wells did his original classic Long Take Touch of Evil, or De Palma, like there's the opening of Von Father Vanities as well. It's just it's not as easy to do it then. So these are real feats of rehearsal and choreography between the camera operator, the cinematographer, the director, and the actors. But that's one of the many numerous bits. There's a funny how bit with Joe Pesci, who won the Oscar, and yeah, it's a kind of one-note performance, but it's a brilliant one-note performance. I think De Niro finds depths as well, but the underrated performance of this is Ray Liotta. You know, I just think he gets overlooked in this. I think it's a truly great performance. I think he's fantastically cast. He's an actor I enjoy. He's got that great laugh, Ray Liotta. But it's so well done. This film is just, and again, there's that thing as well with that, you know, when they're burying the body and they have to dig it up, and it's got the horrible red light on it. That scene. Which, you know, it's actually at the start and then you see it later. That's very influential. People kind of copy that lighting design and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's just, it is, I mean, Scorsese got criticised by film critics at the time that this was the start of his Scorsese, in inverted commas, period. But, you know, Scorsese had a really good early, you know, mid-70s. Then he did New York, and then he kind of had quite a difficult time where his films flopped, like King of Comedy. He kind of did After Hours. He had to do some, you know, he didn't really know how to work in the studio-based thing. And then he got the Oscar nomination for Last Temptation of Christ. But he hadn't really had a hit. Now, this wasn't a big hit, but it was kind of like a film that people, you know, wanted to see. And then the next one he did was Cape Fear, which was a big hit. And then he's kind of, you know, found more this balance where he did more artistic-based things, but eventually, you know, teamed up with DiCaprio, and that gave him the sort of the budgets to do the films he wanted to do. So, you know, him and Spielberg, Spielberg's always been a studio player, but I think but people don't realise that Scorsese and Spielberg are really good friends. Spielberg's top mates with De Palma, you know. It's that enabled, you know, Scorsese to kind of thrive, really. Obviously he's done The Irishman on Netflix, and you'll see more of that. You'll see more of these top-line filmmakers just doing films in Netflix, because the studios won't give them the money for these types of films, and the studios are obsessed with superhero films and blockbusters. That's one of the reasons why we're in the shit at the moment, really, and we're in the shit with the cinema exhibition thing, because the budgets of these films, they can't risk losing money by going streaming. They've got to wait for the pandemic to clear. So that's Goodfellas, yeah, superb. So my second one, number 2, this was the toss-up between these two films. Obviously, it's a crime film. Again, it doesn't have the organised crime element. You know, there's maybe this top 10 was maybe going to be top 10 gangster films, but my mate did a thumbnail crime film, so I'm like, okay, let's just adapt this way. I think this is the greatest film of the last 25 years. Ever since it came out, I've not seen a film that's affected me more. I've not seen a film that's better. Pacino's involved, of course, but it features one of the last great performances, or one of the greatest performances by Robert De Niro, is of course Michael Mann's 1995 masterpiece, Heat. I still remember the first time I went to see this at the Pictures. Basically, in the lead up to this, Casino was coming out. I can't remember where I've seen Casino before this, but it was like, Casino's coming out, it's the Goodfellas team, they're back. And then, you know, we knew about this film with De Niro and Pacino, but we were more focused on the Casino. But when we went to see Heat, I remember coming out of the Pictures, I went with a couple of mates, and I think my mate had a car, maybe we drove back to his or something. And it was just a sense that we'd seen something that had made us feel something that we hadn't felt for a long time in the cinema. You know, it's an absolute masterpiece of sound and image, this film. It's got incredible cinematography by Danny Spinotti. Michael Mann's shot compositions. I mean, that opening shot of the metro train, you know, LA metro train, the track, just perfectly framed, and you get that diagonal shot of De Niro walking across to nick the ambulance, and it just sets up that opening so good, you know, nicking the ambulance. Then the heist goes wrong because of Wayne Grohl. We don't know that yet because he's masked up. You know, he's got like Pacino turns up and like reads the scene. You know, why leave a living witness? You know, it's just all so brilliantly handled. It's great how Mann shoots LA as well. He finds really interesting locations, like Tarantino does in Pulp Fiction, actually. Just finding those weird nooks and crannies of LA. There's a bit where there's just a shot of a petrol station. It kind of reminds me of kind of the artist Edward Hopper or something like that, where you just, you know, the way the shot's framed is just kind of, you know, just basically looking at this petrol station in a new, unique way. There's numerous great scenes in it. There's a bit where De Niro basically puts up Danny Trejo's character out of his misery, and there's that great shot where the camera pulls away and you just see the gunfire light up the window. I think those bits, there's a couple of bits where it's shot on digital video possibly. I think there's a bit where he's with the Amy Brennan character as well, De Niro, and that might be shot on DV, sort of using some of the early technology there. But yeah, that's the only bit that rings a little hollow with it. I don't think her character, the Amy Brennan character, and the De Niro relationship's quite developed. I've never quite understood why, you know, even though De Niro looks ultimately cool, why she do the things she does. Because the other female characters, even though they're in the wives role, are really well done. The Diane Venora, Al Pacino Diane's amazing, as is the Ashley Judd and Val Kilmer bit. The bit of Ashley Judd where she just puts her finger across the top of the balcony. It's just brilliant. Val Kilmer's great. Tom Sizemore. There's that great bit where Tom Sizemore's character goes, oh, you know, for me it's The Rush. You know, I mean, I think Mann was building up to this film. You know, he did Thief and he did Manhunter, and he kind of combined those two films. He combined Thief, which was the criminal, the robber, and he combined the obviously, although it's FBI, the kind of cop element, I guess, and Manhunter and the looks of those films. He made this TV film, LA Takedown, which is it's pretty ropey. It's weird that he did that. But that was a dry run, and he just redid the script and made this epic masterpiece. Of course, you've got to mention the incredible gun battle. I think they got Andy McNabb in to do all the training. And I don't think we'd have never seen a scene like that with the sound design. But the proper military moves that the team do. I think that's the thing with this film. The professionalism of the crew is amazing, and it shows them. There's two big influences on Michael Mann on this. I think there's Howard Hawks. If you take a film like Rio Bravo, in that film, it's the guys hold up in the jail who've got to defend themselves. It's about like how professional are, how good they are with a gun, can they do the job. And that's an influential idea from that director that's used by other directors. But there was Jean-Pierre Melville, the French director, so he made a series of crime films, particularly his one for 1967, there's Le Samouraï, there's Le Cercle Rouge, and Le Cop. If you look at those films, again, they have cops and robbers in who've got this professional, hyper-professional way of operating, but the look of those films usually kind of neat, the kind of lots of blues, desaturated colour palette, and obviously Mann uses that look. I mean, Heat's very blue, if we had to pick a colour for this film, but there's the great scene with Pacino and De Niro meeting, which is just kind of, you never actually see them in the same shot, it's just over the shoulder. Great soundtrack. Later on, Mann, would try and kind of use the same things on Collateral, on Miami Vice, but it never quite, it didn't come off like it did in this film. She just mentioned before as Public Enemies he made later on, obviously that would be a film from the 1930s, a crime film, and that could have, if it had been a better film, could have been a contender in here, but, it's a good film, but it's, he's done so many shootouts, he's done a shootout since Heat in Black Hat, his last film, Public Enemies, Miami Vice, and Collateral have all got crazy shootouts, but, he never topped Heat. There's just so many moments in this film, but he could go on, he could do a whole episode of this kind of thing about Heat, but that's my number 2 choice. So I've cheated for number 1. You know what number 1 is? It could only be one of 2 films, so I've cheated. I've had to pick the 2 films, The Godfather Part 1 and The Godfather 2. It's difficult to pick between them. I think The Godfather is the kind of more linear film. It's the easier watch, a bit like the first Star Wars. The second one is the more complicated one. It doesn't always work as well, but when it works, it's absolutely incredible. So, these films talk about, they're not only great American crime films, they're 2 of the great works of art of the 20th century. When you get the 10 best films ever made list, not even just American films, these films will be on it. The story of them, you've got this pulp novel comes out, it's a bestseller by Mario Puzo. Coppola at this point, I think principally why he gets tapped to direct it is his Italian-American heritage, but he's won the Oscar for writing Patton, because his first 3 films, 4 films, haven't been hits. Dementia 13, You're a Big Boy Now, The Rain People, Finian's Rainbow, then The Rain People. And they're nothing like this, the way they're shot and so on. But I guess Robert Evans, the studio boss, thinks this guy might be good, but Coppola sees something in it. He sees an opportunity to do something about the dark side of the American dream, but do a King Lear-esque, a Shakespearean tragedy. And he casts these amazing new Hollywood actors. This is only Al Pacino's second film. Is it Diane Keaton's debut, the first one? Then in part 2, he finds De Niro, comes up with this amazing framing narrative. Castley, Strasberg, the guys taught these guys to act. And, he just creates this stunning film. Actually, the first time I saw The Godfather Part 2 was actually when they did the 5-hour edit. So they took the start of The Godfather Part 2, the flashback bits, and put them at the start. And that's pretty cool, actually. I mean, there's so many scenes in these films you could pick. I think what makes them stand out is the killing scenes. Every time someone gets assassinated in these films, it's just incredible. It begins with the amazing Sterling Hayden again appearing. We mentioned him before, the assassination of his character by Michael. An incredible scene in all cinema, not just in The Godfather. Probably my all-time favourite, the assassination of the Black Hand, Fanucci. So the Black Hand with the organised crime before the Mafia. De Niro tracks him across the roofs of Little Italy, and he shoots him his towel, using it as a silencer, sets on fire. Just amazing. When De Niro goes back to Sicily to exact revenge on the guy who murdered his family, it's brilliant. You got a guy getting shot through the eye, forget the name of the character. A guy gets strangled, Sonny gets riddled with bullets. I mean, it's just incredible. I think the acting's utterly staggering in these films. Brando, you know, if you didn't think he deserved the Oscar, you know what cats are like. Just watch that opening scene, the way he uses the cat as like a prop, you know, as a bit of business, and he's tactile with it, he's got it under control. You know, the incredible cinematography by Gordon Willis, you know, they call him the Prince of Darkness, you know, you can just see the kind of black orbs of Brando's eyes. Amazing, you know, that scene. Then you've got the incredible Pacino. You know, the key moment is when there's this, they think there's going to be an assassination attempt on Don Corleone. He's in hospital, and the cop who they've got, I think it's a cop, they've got him paid off, you know, to help protect Don Corleone outside the hospital, and he's shaking, and I think Michael lights his cigarette, something like that, and he's just not shaking at all. But the reason is that because he's fought in World War II, I suspect he's killed a lot of people, and you realise, you know, Michael's got this steel-like control, you know. Later on in Godfather 2, Pacino will sort of go up a level, and in my opinion, he will accomplish in that film the greatest performance ever committed to celluloid by any actor ever. You know, yeah, you get amazing feats by Daniel Day-Lewis, De Niro running close Brando, but Pacino just does something incredible across the two films, but particularly in Godfather Part 2. By the end, he's just kind of dead inside. So, you know, you could go on. James Caan's great. Obviously, I've said Brando. Dan Keaton's fantastic. Talia Shire. All the supporting characters, Michael Figazzo, Frank Pentangeli, Robert Duvall. You know, this was amazing. Yeah, these are incredible films. I think the other thing about The Godfather as well, it was a blockbuster of its time. You know, it was as big as a Marvel film would be now. Obviously, you know, if you inflation adjusted its gross, it wouldn't be quite as big. But you didn't have like the extended market we have now, you know, in China and places like that. So, you know, people were prepared to pay to see this, you know, really dark American epic. That was the blockbuster of the day. The next year, you know, you had The Exorcist. What's gone wrong? You know, people just want to see some CGI explosions at the end, you know. But that's the new Hollywood era. And this is the pinnacle of the new Hollywood. It kind of shows what was possible and what was done, you know. I should quickly mention about acting, of course, De Niro's magnificent as well as the young Don Corleone. So yeah, I actually picked 11 films there. Let's go back through. I forgot to go back through the previous top ones, but you've got Donnie Brasco, number 10, Friends of Eddie Coyle, number 9, Charlie Varick, 8, Bonnie and Clyde, 7, Carlito's Way, 6, Once Upon a Time in America, 5, Scarface, 4, Goodfellas, 3, Heat, 2, and then vying for number 1, because you can't really separate them, The Godfathers 1 and 2. You have to watch these films back to back. Forget about The Godfather 3, it's a decent film, but it's no way near the level of The Godfathers 1 and 2. Missed opportunity. They could have done something great, I think, if Coppola was more infused. So that ends me American crime films. Hope you enjoyed that. These films have gone through. Actually, really are some of my favourite films of all time. You know, the last 4 choices would probably be in my top. Well, would be in my top 10 films of all time. So it's a genre I love. Probably because it's got my favourite actors, De Niro, Pacino, Brando, stuff like that. And it attracts the greatest filmmakers ever. Okay, so thanks very much. Hope you enjoyed that. Cheers.